My name is Adam Sharp, co-founder of Colour Touch. So welcome to the Gherkin. So hopefully you found it okay. Apologies if there was a slight delay getting through security downstairs, but there we go. Okay, so today's event is called the Simplification and Smarter Adoption of MA. Otherwise, let's just call it Simplification or Simplifying MA. In terms of our hosts today, this is where we are. We're on the 38th, I think, of 41 floors. The building here, officially known as 30 St Mary Axe, designed by Norman Foster, he who put the glass tower on the Reichstag in Germany and has done the Bloomberg building recently that won the Reber Awards. As you see, lots of glass and nearly as round as it is tall. In terms of the agenda today, we've got three speakers today. We've got Scott coming over from Integrate. We think Integrate is quite an interesting technology, coexists really well with MA. And so we thought we'd share that one with yourselves. Then we're going to have a quick break, and then on to the key speaker, which is Tim from Fujitsu, talking about their experiences and what they're doing with MA. And then Luke's going to show you some whizzy stuff at the end. Luke's our technical manager, so despite his baby face and yes, his ruddy cheeks. He's actually been in the business quite a while, and hopefully you've had a wonderful experience checking in with his little event manager app there. It really does work. In terms of the purpose of these events, really, it's threefold. Obviously, we try and do them in lovely locations. Shame about the weather, but really, it's about hearing from your peers. So this isn't really a salesy environment. It's about talking to people and sharing experiences. And sort of half of you are typically clients and, like Bill from Orange here, and half of you are sort of new to it and just discovering. So it don't feel weird talking to a complete stranger. It's totally normal, and just sharing your stuff there as well. We also try and cover some of the sort of the themes of Martech space, as we see it going on at the moment in the marketplace. One of those recent themes actually is around this idea of the war for talent. There's such a shortage of skills in this space. So we started looking at that recently. This was, if you like, the premise that, our ability to buy technology, we love buying technology, but it actually typically exceeds our ability to use it properly. The little model at the bottom there is Kotter's model on change management, and this really is about change management when you do this stuff. So start with the vision, build that buy-in, and democratize the thinking before you implement as well. So the way we started representing this war for talent was we commissioned the Marketoonists to do a series of cartoons for us, and you might have started seeing some of this on our LinkedIn and stuff and emails. We think this is about right. It isn't quite as easy as you're told it is, and we did a little survey, a very small survey from this audience here today, and in terms of adoption, a lot of you are struggling with it at the moment. Our favourite ad is this one, so we just had to show it to you. But again, a lot of organisations now aren't quite sure whether, how do they build that organisation to drive this deployment successfully. Do you buy in the talent, do you build the talent, or do you partner with someone? And again, you'll hear today from Fujitsu the way they're looking at doing it as well. Again, when we asked you guys what you thought about the shortage in the marketplace, you felt pretty clearly that there is an issue there as well. What is also interesting as well is that, and this is absolutely right, is that most people realise that marketing technology is becoming so important to the role of marketing. It's not on the periphery anymore, that most of you are trying to build in-house teams. It makes perfect sense. Although some partnering beyond the vendors is happening more and more now as well. So that building that hybrid deployment model is something that Fujitsu will talk about today. I was actually looking for VMware as well, because Jane from VMware, some of you might know, they've built a phenomenally successful hybrid deployment model as well. Very quickly on us, if you haven't heard of us, we've been going around about 10 years now. Our goal is to be like the champion of new thinking around the space. We focus a lot around thought leadership, hence the war for talent. We've worked with around about 400 organisations. We're proudly independent. And we've launched a few tech brands in our time as well. So Phil, some of you might have met earlier, he actually introduced Acton into Europe. Before we came yet closer to a business. And we've also got our sister company, Comsco, here as well somewhere. They introduced Pardot into the market as well. So we like to be seen as a bit of a launch pad for new and exciting technologies. And as I say, you're going to hear about one today, which is Integrate, which, as Jamie from our team quite eloquently said, Integrate is the technology that the marketing automation vendors should have built themselves. It's all about that data standardization, organization inside the platform as well. And again, it's a great way of simplifying the platform. And they're defining this new category. You'll see a few firms referring to this idea of data orchestration now as well. So, as I say, you'll hear from Scott and his thinking and what's going on across the pond around that technology. So today's theme is around simplifying and smarter adoption. Love this quote. Not only is he quite a cool bloke and quite wealthy, but he says some good stuff as well. Actually, Alan Layton, who used to be the CEO of the Post Office and then went on to, or before that was the CEO of Asda, he said he didn't ever refer to himself as a CEO. He referred to himself as the CSO, the Chief Simplification Officer, because it's about keeping stuff simple as well. So how important is simplification for you as an audience here? Well, sort of 2/3 of you are saying it's certainly on your agenda today, and increasingly in the future it's going to become more important. Maybe it's an issue that people haven't really thought about. Again, before today, haven't really heard about too many people trying to simplify this stuff as well. Now, there's different approaches to simplification. You can simplify it by, as I say, by maybe outsourcing or standardization of programs. Again, the VMware model is phenomenal, the way they're able to simplify but execute in up to 20 languages. It's something that Fujitsu are well on the way to looking to do as well. It could be a simplification of the technology, the consolidation, and so forth. So again, when you hear from Tim today, our headline act, he will talk about the various ways Fujitsu are trying to simplify what they're doing in and around their Martech space as well. And then after Tim, we've got Luke up there today, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the dev lab. Now we've got this team, dev lab team, if you like, within Clever Touch, and they're really solving technology problems for our clients. So they only develop products that our clients ask for, and then we look to monetize elsewhere as well. So, as I say, some of you might have had that experience of that simple event manager. Sometimes people don't want really expensive event apps. They just want something that's going to work really seamlessly and quickly. Isn't that right, Johnny? That's right. Okay, so the single biggest problem in Martech today, I think, is this. It's the slide that everyone uses, and it's interesting. I noticed last week B2B Marketing just launched their Martech Stack conference as well. This started out as a marketing director's enthusiastic blog around technology, and suddenly it's grown and sort of into its own animal. And so, we see these Stacky Awards going on as well. And it's just wrong, because it just actually accelerates complexity. And so if you are going to use this, when we kicked off as a business, there were about 100 vendors out there. Now there's 7,000. A lot of these technologies will not exist in the future. Some of the Marketo's more recent acquisitions have been what the Americans call a fire sale. So organizations that are burning cash and aren't getting, won't be there to survive. So when you do partner with companies, and we do exactly the same, you look for companies that have got credibility, that are well-financed, and can really make an impact as well. So use this as a bibliography and not a strategy in its own right. And that's where I think a lot of organizations are getting confused. That people are winning awards based on the prettiness of all the technology they've got on a PowerPoint slide and not actually on a coherent story. So it would be a bit like, the English dictionary. It's never going to win a Man Booker Prize for a coherent story, but it is a reference point. So in terms of the T in technology, it really is around telling a coherent story. Now, one of the things we talk a lot about is the spine of a business. So nature's own information architect is brain. to spine. It's the most efficient way of relaying information around an organization. And it seems to us at the moment that people are trying to implement too many technologies too quickly. It's a bit like putting brains in your fingertips. It's just going to cause more chaos, and you're just shifting one problem from one point to another as well. So it's so important that you get this spine right, from the web to the MA to the CRM. And you'll be surprised at the number of organizations that, again, don't build that simplistic, coherent model there. So start with that and then build out the technologies as well. And then finally, most importantly, when you do this stuff, it's not just about the technology, although that is pretty cool and it's a good place, an exciting place to work. It's really about the business of marketing technology. So up until recently, we've been talking quite a lot about the 8 business reasons for doing it. We now think there's 13, and this is something we're publishing at the moment as well. I'm sure when Tim talks about his stuff today, he will be talking about the business reasons for why Fujitsu implemented this stuff in the first place. It's so important that marketeers get out of that, creative art gallery mode, and they can have conversations with credibility that the business expects and needs, frankly. So, final slide. As we go through today, again, I'd come back to this this quote here again. The technology is exciting. It's really, really interesting, but it's so much about the execution and more importantly, bringing your employees and your peers with you as well. Okay, so welcome today. Hope you have lots of fun. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Scott.
Good morning. I am the token sales guy in the room, but I don't want you to think the wrong thing, in that I actually come from a marketing background. I am one of only 2 people in my company with a marketing degree, weirdly enough. And for those of you that I haven't met, I am clearly American. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. And joining me today is Colby Kavanaugh, who lives in Portland in the United States. He is our VP of Alliances and Channels. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for the Clever Touch team and looking forward to the Fujitsu presentation and to learning with you throughout the course of the day today. We've got lots and lots of things to cover, but just to kind of give you a little background. So I've been in the marketing technology space for what sounds like 20 years, since I was 9 years old. Actually was one of the original founders of a company called Eloqua. Anyone an Eloqua customer here today? A couple, all right. When I joined the company, we were a $5 million company. We grew the company from $5 million to $95 million, and then sold the company for $1 billion. Just a little shy of $1 billion. We also are part of the crazy people that invented that goofy slide that you saw a moment ago with the million logos. Anybody want to guess in 2006, 2007, how many vendors there were on that slide? Anybody want to guess in 2007 when the slide, Adam? You remember when the slide first got written?
It was about 50, I guess.
Less than 60 vendors were on that slide. Anybody know what the number is today, 2018? 5,000 companies that exist on that slide. Now, while I am a marketer by trade, I'm a sales guy by profession today, and I run a sales and marketing organization. Our company, Integrate, is based in Phoenix, Arizona. My CEO is a guy named, who you might not know, but you might. His name is Jeremy Bloom. Jeremy is the founder of one of the founders of the company. Jeremy was one of the only athletes on the planet to be an Olympic athlete. He was a downhill mogul skier. And the day after the games in Turin, he went to the NFL Combine and was drafted by an American football team called the Philadelphia Eagles. He played for the Eagles and for the Steelers. And then he started, after he left the NFL, he started this company called Integrate. Jeremy was a marketer by trade. When he came out of the NFL, they sent him to Wharton Business School, and he got his MBA from Wharton. The NFL was kind enough to pay for that. And Jeremy has been in this space for quite some time, We've grown the company over the course of the last 4 years, triple, double in growth, but all surrounding the notion of helping marketers to weave through this crazy nightmare of marketing technology, get to the heart of a problem, and to use Adam's example, simplify the way that it is that we help the marketer be successful. Now, I'm part of the answer and the problem in that here behind me was one of the original, my CMO is a guy named Scott Vaughn. Anybody know Scott? Anybody connected to Scott? If you don't, Vaughan. Scott is one of the most prolific CMOs in the marketing space today, and I recommend that you reach out to him, connect with him on LinkedIn. Scott was my customer when I was at Eloqua at UBM. Was one of the most difficult CMOs I've ever sold to try and get my software through the UBM framework. But it was because Scott was wired at his core, at the DNA level, to focus on revenue, performance, and acceleration and not get sucked into the craziness in the world that is Martech today. 5,000 client companies. Just by show of hands, how many of you, I got 2 for Eloqua, how many Marketo customers? Ooh, large juxtaposition, okay? Pardot. Something other than Eloqua or Marketo or Pardot. HubSpot, anything else like that? Okay. Yes, please?
We're transitioning at the moment.
We're transitioning. I love it. Okay, awesome. How many have ESP solutions that you're trying to make a marketing automation tool? Or that you're trying to use as though it's a marketing automation tool? Exact Target, Responses, any of those? We're seeing an interesting trend in that perspective, right? How many have nothing with regard to marketing automation or marketing tech? Okay, so a couple of other categories just so I can understand. Anyone doing A/B split testing, site-side optimization? Products like Optimizely and Maximizer. A few, awesome, fantastic. From a web, just again for audience surveying, for web analytics, from a web analytics perspective, Adobe Audience, Adobe, yes, okay, all right. Anyone using Web Trends still? Colby and I both worked at Web Trends together. God bless you, sir. Thank you very much, my children. Thank you. That is lovely. Okay, fantastic. Look, guys, we have come a remarkable long distance. We are able today, remembering that marketing automation as a technology did not exist any guesses? Pre what year? As a category, marketing automation as a category did not exist pre what year? Anyone guess? 2008 was the first time that Gartner used the term marketing automation. 2008. Okay, so in relative terms, 2008 to 18, 10 years to create a market segment to go from 60 logos to 5,000 logos. How many people, though, when you woke up this morning, thought to yourself, I am drowning in marketing technology? Anyone? I hear it every day. I'm drowning. And yet, I cannot seem to get my arms around the performance of each solution. I know things like open rates and click-through rates. Anybody rise and fall in the morning on open rates and click-through rates? Website visits, form submits, etc. Guys, we've come a long way. We are able to, in the span of 10 years, we can generate leads and pipeline. Truly, we can show exactly the revenue impact. How many people have in your MBOs or in your job responsibility a revenue performance number? 1, 2, 3. First year we did a thing called Eloqua Experience, which those of you that are Eloqua customers know what that is. That was our giant user conference. Today in the Marketo world, I think that's called Marketing Nation or Marketo Nation, right? First year we did this, we had 500 attendees. My CEO asked the room, how many of you today are judged based on your ability to impact revenue? Out of 500 people, 4 hands raised. The next year we had 1,200 people, and the same question was asked. How many of you here are judged in your daily life on your impact on revenue? 40 people. Third year, most of the entire room raised their hands. Same question. And as they say, the further away you get from revenue, the larger the target on your back becomes. Sorry, It's the reality of the reality of the world that we live in. And so your ability to run things like leads and pipeline and directly tie that to revenue and your impact on revenue is huge. We can connect our MA systems and our CRM systems and our websites together almost seamlessly. How many people feel confident that you've woven together MA, CRM, and the website? Anyone? A couple, 2 or 3? And yet, would you say that that's a barrier to entry for your success in marketing? Absolutely. It's the thing that we hear every day. We're trying to weave all this together. And oh, by the way, it just so happens that we also have data from all over the enterprise. Anyone ever come back from a trade show with 300 swipes and trying to figure out how to get those 300 swipes, people that came by the booth and we scanned their badge, into the hands of the sales reps? Anyone ever been concerned about how long that takes? Because we all know that leads from a trade show have the shelf life of a fish, right? Absolutely a challenge. We can drive traffic to our web pages and we've got really good content, right? Because content gets them to the website, doesn't it? Right. We have mostly solved the inbound challenge, and we have generally a technology or a way to get from capture to a score and route those and put them in nurture. How many people would say that you have a complex lead scoring model built today? 2, 3, 4 that you're really excited about? How many people have multiple lead score models built for your enterprise versus one? A few? Awesome. Cool. Yeah? Yeah. That's exciting. That means that we are building multiple models for lead scoring, and Adam and team know how to do that better than anybody, that is predicated on lines of business, geo, et cetera, right? We can measure stuff. Really cool. How many people are using the BI tool that is contained within your marketing automation system versus sending it out to some other tool, Tableau, MicroStrategy, et cetera? And sorry, Maimon, you're a Marketo customer. Awesome BI, right? Using the tools they have, but we're also seeing this huge outcry of we need more from a BI perspective, and the data that needs to be woven together with what's in marketing automation is the difference between success and failure in the way that we present. We're platform certified. How many people have an advanced certification in marketing automation, Eloqua, Marketo, et cetera, et cetera? I myself am an Eloqua master, sales guy, genius, certified, right? And that matters because we actually have some professionalization of the marketing automation problem. You guys know what got us there today is not going to get us there in the future. You know how this formula works. We pay millions of dollars to Google. We build out forms and we build out landing pages and we integrate all this with the marketing automation systems. We create amazing content and we drive them to the website and we capture the website forms. And the forms still say Mickey Mouse at mickeymouse.com for an email. Or they say kiss my and butt, my first and last name. I will not say which marketing automation system, but I was with a customer in Florida 2 weeks ago, CMO, and he said, yeah, one of my sales guys in Salesforce entered, I will never sell to this jackass in an open form in Salesforce, in an open field. And you want to finish the swing for me? Anybody want to finish the swing for me? What happened? Somebody accidentally pulled a segment that included the data element, I will never sell to this jackass. And that email went out, dear, fill in the blank. So have we really come a long way, guys? Have we really? Look, customers are expecting more from us. The world is expecting more from us. 35 million digital devices are being added to the internet monthly. By the year 2020, 50 billion devices will exist on the internet. And so customers are expecting more. They're expecting you to engage at a different level. They are absolutely focused on how do we engage with the buyer. I wrote down some stats here. 50 billion devices by 2020. 55% of enterprise CMOs polled said we have better nail this digitization of the enterprise. Absolutely critical to our success. And yet, we have to be focused on how this technology, this crazy nutso world from a logo perspective, how it's delivering for us as a marketer. And so revenue performance and revenue acceleration is critical to your success. We've got a little free air that we have to work through. It's a balancing act from a marketing perspective in that how do we balance the technology with the delivery? Of those of you that raised your hand and said that you were tied from an MBO or from a job performance perspective to revenue, can someone comment on whether or not is a revenue increase or an attribution of revenue? Anyone? That was both? It's an increase and it's attribution. Are you guys running influence and attribution models for the most part? Fantastic. And so there's some rare air. There's hope afoot. And I love the balancing act that we face. So we've got to think and we've got to act differently than we have in the past. And this is one of my favorite quotes. I'm just going to read it. Change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end. I love this one to start all marketing conversations, all marketing meetings, because it gives us a great framework to think through. And yet, we get back to this, right? We get back to this ickiness from a marketing perspective. And so my watch for the day for all of you as we get ready to go to Fujitsu is don't let this distract you. Pick a road. Pick three things. Anybody know why I do the number three this way? Anybody guess? Apparently it's different by different cultures. I was an Air Force aviator for about 10 years. And when you are showing the number three between two airplanes that are not in radio communication, that are flying side by side, the number three can look like the number two. So you have to show to the other guy, if you're going to channel 3 on the radio, you have to show it this way so the other guy can see across the way if we're 75 yards away from each other. And so there's 3 things that we absolutely have to focus on. If you'll just get 3 things to simplify, to use Adam's vernacular. The first thing is no time. I'm not inventing more time. It's really easy to get distracted in this world and in this sort of jumble of words. It's really easy to get distracted. You have no time. That's one. The second part is you have too many choices. Pick a road. Focus on revenue performance because everything in the world of marketing goes backwards from revenue. Don't choose vanity metrics is the third thing, right? And so we're going to talk a lot more about that. How do we turn up the volume? Don't choose vanity metrics. How many people walk into your CMO's office with open rate, click-through rate, and website visits as the thing that is carrying you to the dance? Anyone? Anyone think that that's going to get you where you need to go in success? Absolutely will not. So my recommendation, guys, is at this stage, we don't want to get distracted by too many choices. We want to focus on assessment and simplification, to use Adam's vernacular. This is kind of the road to revenue journey from a marketing perspective. And it kind of starts with, let's begin with the lead generation framework. Let's understand our lead quantity and quality. Does everyone understand clearly your current acceptance rates from MQL to SQL and SQO with sales reps? Do you understand clearly how many how many leads are being accepted and rejected by sales? Can someone please share with me why you think the number one reason why reps reject your leads? Anyone? It's the number one reason why reps reject your leads. Data quality. Amen. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Number one reason, data quality. And is the data quality generally around what we know about the opens and the clicks and the website? It's normally, there's something about the data itself in the lead that is bad. So we start with data quality. we sort of move from there into the demand generation framework. Is everyone in the room focused on generating very clear ICP? You guys know what I mean by ICP, the ideal customer profile. Is that a part of your framework for everyday living? Everybody's agreeing on ICP? Everybody's agreeing on personas, yes? Absolutely. The room collectively nods on that one. That's terrific. Okay. And then tracking and reporting from a dashboard perspective, as we mentioned before, critical. So at the end of the day, it's critical that we sort of build our model, and then as we drive into revenue marketing instead of just demand gen, this becomes remarkably critical to your success. Again, going backwards from revenue and understanding how much is enough from a marketing perspective. At the end of the day, all of this data is locked up inside of attribution and inside of influence marketing going forward. So, first thing we got to do is assess. So these are our 4 core focus areas, right? We assess our process, we assess our data, we assess our talent, and then finally our technology. Notice I listed technology as last. We tend to start with the technology these days, assuming that it's going to solve for all of our problems, but we did not understand the core framework of our success to start forward. So let's start with the process. And you've all heard this notion of automating automating bad process is the worst thing that we can do, right? So we'll start with our process. We understand what our big initiatives are. We understand what is our core strategy from big to small with regard to the targets. How many people are running after ABM today? Active ABM process or projects? A couple? This is where we ask the question, what was it that we thought we were going to get from ABM when we decided to do ABM? Number one question I ask of our customers, when you decided to invest in ABM, what were you looking to get? And the general answer is, I don't know, everybody's doing ABM. Really? Again, going back to that slide with the million logos, everybody's doing ABM, so we should think about ABM because we saw it in the British Airways magazine of the hot new things that are going on in marketing. We should look at ABM. Guys, I'm just going to tell you, from my perspective, ABM is still just, what's the M part? Still just marketing. Those of us that have been around the world for a while remember it in the old days as target marketing. Right? Let's pick a group of accounts, let's focus on those accounts, let's zero in on the personas, and let's go win. And that's evolved over the years to this thing called ABM. Second piece, most important piece in my opinion, the data, right? How many people, and this is going to be a little uncomfortable, you ready? Does anyone have a guess as to how many percentage-wise, how many contacts exist in your database that are currently sitting in an unsubscribed state? Any guesses? According to Gartner, 34% of your contact records are sitting in your database in an unsubscribed state. The land of the living dead when it comes to contacts. Right? By the way, anyone a fan of the Living Dead TV show? Does that happen here? That's actually filmed in my hometown. Not kidding. And so we call that the land of the dead leads. 34% of your contacts sit in an unsubscribed format. Is anyone here willing to say that your data hygiene is really good? I keep track. I've been to thousands of calls and I ask the question of marketers every day, would you describe your data as hygienic? And no one ever says, oh yeah, it's great. We know all the first names, we got all the emails correct, we've got all the titles correct, we've got V. P. Vice Pres, we got all the permutations, it's all good. More importantly, we got it clean and we know how to keep it clean. It never happens. So the data problem is kicking marketers' butts these days, and that's why there is an Integrate. As Adam said, Integrate was invented to solve the problem that marketing automation never solved for, which is how do we take data from multiple channels, multiple sources at the top of the funnel? and adjudicate the records as they flow through, like a giant Plinko game. As the records flow through, apply some logic to the records, fix what's wrong, dedupe, normalize, standardize, enrich the records, etc., and then automatically map those directly into your MA system in real time so that sales gets better class of leads, marketing gets better understanding of how leads get sort of attributed from top to bottom in real time, and at the end of the day, the data quality gets clean and stays clean. So, big deal. Talent. How many people would you say, or how many people here would say you have enough marketing talent on your team? Again, thousands of meetings. They always go, no, we can use more. And do we feel as though the talent that we have, that they are spending the time doing the things that they enjoy doing versus being a slave to the technology that they currently... We buy these technologies and then we place our people in slavery to the technology. Every day someone comes to me and says, no, Scott, we can't do that because the technology won't let us do that. I'm like, guys, did we buy it to serve us or did we buy it to serve it? At the end of the day, the talent that you have should be looking at your technology and determining, does it do what the business needs to do, or are we having to do what it tells us to do? You guys get what I'm saying? Okay, and then finally, the tech, right? At the end of the day, I believe that many of you already have the technology that you need to do everything you need to do, but you're only using 10% of what it does. Anybody know what I'm talking about? We're confident we're only using 10% of the technology. Now, this will be uncomfortable for the folks that might be selling Marketo to you or Eloqua to you, etc. But when we're only using 10%, we have to go back to them and prove that their renewal contract meets the par, that we are looking at the technology, valuing the technology, and that if we're truly not getting the most value from the technology, that we put it back on them. This is what Clever Touch is amazing at doing, is helping you capitalize on and truly expand the usage of the technologies that you spend all this money and time to evaluate and deploy, and that's what we're here for. Who's going to own adoption? Adoption is clearly the reason why these accounts don't renew, these customers don't renew. Again, that's what we're here for today. So, when we talked about the 55% of the CMOs that were polled at the enterprise, and they talked about nailing this digital revolution, there's a couple of things. Again, there's how many people are looking at ABM versus own it? Is that a topic of, is it happening? Okay, good. Targeting, ABM, precision. Anyone doing predictive things like Mintigo and 6 Sense and things of that nature where you're looking forward? Not a hot thing here yet? Okay. Trust and compliance. GDPR is a big deal, and yet do we truly trust marketing to adjudicate the framework of GDPR? I know everyone in the room is thinking about or has thought about GDPR. It kind of started here. I know it's a hot topic. The worry that we have in America is less GDPR, and frankly, more of the other state, at the state level in the United States. California is inventing their own GDPR monster that's going to be even worse. That's going to be more complex than the current GDPR framework. New York is inventing their own. Canada is famous for taking whatever somebody invented in Europe and making it even worse. Sorry, I said the Canadian. Sorry. It's worse, and it's going to be worse in Canada. And if you're marketing to the United States and you think you got it solved with GDPR, I got news for you. You got people living in California. Now you got a whole other thing that you have to consider. Anyone marketing to California? I'm sure many of you are. It's going to get more complex. And trusting marketing to manage the complexities of compliance is a big deal. You have to ensure that you have quality, marketable data. Silly things like dedupe, normalize, standardize, still kicking our butts. Anyone get convinced by your marketing automation vendor that they could solve for this? Anyone? A few? Yes? And Quietly, yeah, I'm getting the ear tug, yes. Absolutely, and yet, still, companies that we profile, consistently, 85 to 90% of them say, we spent all this money on marketing automation and our data is still shut. Still, to this day. Speed to lead, absolutely. There's a credibility issue that exists between sales and marketing. How many people would say you are aligned with your sales teams? It's the dirty little secret, right? There is no alignment between sales and marketing. Sorry. It's really only designed to be, we should collaborate, but by its very nature, sales and marketing alignment are difficult. There's a credibility problem that exists with marketing because sales doesn't trust us anymore because all they see is bad leads, all they see is bad data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet you have the ability to control that relationship credibility-wise between sales and marketing. And finally, how do we measure, again, empirically from a revenue performance perspective, how do we measure pipeline and then be able to follow the bouncing ball from first point of ingest of data all the way to handoff of sale to sales and back to close the loop? How many people think that ROI is the marketing measure? It's not. It's COI. You ready? Cost of inaction. What happens if we do nothing, guys? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. Henry Ford from the Ford Company. Famous quote from Henry Ford. And so we've got to shake it up. That's what Clever Touch does. That's what Fujitsu is doing. That's what you're going to hear from them in just a moment. So guys, just some examples. When Integrate is brought into the equation, customers like Rackspace are seeing 40 plus hours per month gotten back from eliminating bad marketing processes. Companies like Iron Mountain, quadrupling marketing's impact on pipeline. Huge. 6.6 times increase in pipeline opportunities. And Pluralsight, 4 times increase in marketing productivity. We save 80 hours a month. Things like managing the way that the NDRs process, the BDRs, SDRs, whatever role you might think of, the way that they process leads, how they get the lead quality, that sales gets a better class, that we understand again empirically from top of funnel all the way to the SQL event. These are the kinds of impacts that the Integrate framework is seeing with customers, Eloqua customers, Marketo customers, Pardot customers, even HubSpot all around the world. So guys, I hit you with a lot in a short time. I know there's some hyperbolic marketing concepts in there that I've thrown at you. We'll be around, and I'm happy to have deeper conversations with you. But I am grateful for the time today. This is just a primer for what you're going to get from Fujitsu. The real meat of the presentation you'll get in the day-to-day that Fujitsu is going to share with you. I'm grateful for the time. Thank you for having us here today. Thank you, Clever Touch, for having us here today. And let's go out there and have some fun. Any questions?
Hello everyone. Okay, part 2 today. Thanks very much again, Scott, for that one. Okay, so I'm going to hear from Tim now from Fujitsu and then Luke as well. So the reason for the microphone, you might have a few questions for Tim at the end, so please stick your hand up, and then Matt will just give you the microphone. If you can say who you are, where you're from, and then ask the question. Is that okay? Okay, good. Very quickly, 2 interesting points that you might want to know about Tim. When you see Tim, he's huge. He's actually the 7th of 9 children, which might say something about his ability to get fed at the table and get dressed in the morning, which sometimes may be the skills you need to put marketing automation in effectively. The other thing as well is that this project won International Project of the Year. So we've been working with these guys about 2 years now. They've come a massive, massive way. It was a project that was recognised by the Japanese, and it's actually a project that was started here in Europe and has now gone back to Japan. So they're looking to implement based on the European model as well. So I just wanted to mention that in case Tim was too modest. But without further ado, I'll introduce, let tiny Tim get going.
There's nothing like a good introduction from both a brilliant presenter and a hilarious host to get you going. Yes, I am one of 9 children, so as I was thinking about this morning, my parents must have known a thing or two about simplification to manage a chaotic household. So I'm Tim from Fujitsu, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our story, what we're doing in Fujitsu, and what we've been doing over the last 2 years working with Clevertouch. Before I start, I'm just going to briefly talk very, very quickly about Fujitsu. We often get very confused with Fujifilm. I did see there was someone invited from Fujifilm who hasn't turned up, so I can make this slight joke. The amount of times that I've been asked in Fujitsu, I've worked for Fujitsu for just over 6 years now, the number of times I've been asked about if I can help someone fix their camera or if I can get them a discount for their sister or anything like that. I may as well have suggested that we actually start making cameras, but we don't. We're the second oldest IT company in the world, founded out of Japan, which is where we're headquartered and driven from, as Adam mentioned. And we do end-to-end IT services and products, so anything you can imagine, we cover. There's more than 150,000 of us in over 100 countries in the world. And today I'm going to be focusing on what we're doing in EMEA, so looking at our marketing automation journey here, and then taking you through that. Before I start, I want to kind of impart on you 3 kind of takeaways that I want you to think about from this presentation. These are kind of the core messages and themes, and it's actually quite interesting that with not really any alignment between Adam's presentation, Scott's presentation, and my presentation, we've all got very similar themes, so we're either all right or we're all wrong. The first thing is around don't complicate the simple stuff. I think it can be very easy. We've already heard from Adam, we've heard from Scott, that today we can be very distracted from different marketing technologies. It's very easy to say, oh, okay, I must have this number of technologies in. There's the Stackies Award that has that beautiful one slide of how many different technologies people are using. It's very interesting and very easy to see how people can get distracted and say, well, I must have this level of sophistication straight away. Don't overcomplicate the simple stuff. Secondly, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to MA. Yes, there's a lot of core aspects of MA that can be transferred between different businesses. Adam's already talked about the spine around having MA. But don't think that you can look at what someone else is doing and think, oh, that looks really good, I'll have exactly the same thing. MA is not a copy and paste. You need to think about your business outcomes. You need to think about why you are implementing MA. From the little poll that Scott did earlier, everyone in this room is already doing MA to some perspective, using different tools. The technology is largely irrelevant. But the principles behind it are the same. And lastly, taking people with you. So I'll share a little bit about a few of the numbers that we've got in Fujitsu around our marketers and the number of people we're rolling out marketing automation to. But very, very important point is taking people with you. So in terms of bringing in MA, bringing in change, it's the people that you're impacting, the people who are actually going to be involved in executing this, that are the people you need to involve most. So without further ado, I'm going to talk you through what I want to talk through today. First thing I'm going to do is introduce Fujitsu a bit more and tell you about where we've come from in the last 2 years. So we've been very fortunate to be partnered with Clevertouch and with Martech for the last 2 years. And I'll talk you a little bit about what Fujitsu looked like before that, as I think it may surprise and probably shock quite a few of you. Then I'm going to talk around our business reasons. So Scott mentioned that I was going to look into the business reason around this, and I'm going to share you the examples that we had in Fujitsu of why MA is important, why we're putting it in. Hopefully some of them will be very similar to what you guys have all gone through as well. And there may be a couple in there that also are a little bit different. Looking into our actual Marketo deployment, I'm going to talk through a couple of the key areas where we've worked with Clevertouch to simplify our adoption and try and fast track away from some of the problems that we've come from historically. I'm then going to touch briefly on organisational development, and that's more looking at the different layers of people, the different layers of our organisation, and how we've promoted this app and got buy-in from across the business. I'm then going to touch briefly on one piece of technology, and I know I'm not going to say about bringing in so many things to the tech stack, but there's one piece of technology that we've brought in that's really revolutionised what we're able to do in terms of empowering our wider field marketing audience without making things too complicated, and that's a touch on momentum, and I know that Luke will also touch on that in his presentation as well. And then I'll give you a little bit of oversight around the future, what we're thinking about, what our vision is, touching on Adam's point around bringing this back into Japan. I'll talk around how MA is now looking at transforming what we're doing globally. So that's the overview for today. Hopefully that all makes sense. So to kick off, I'm going to introduce what Fujitsu looked like 2 years ago. So I've been in Fujitsu for 6 years now. And just a little over 2 years ago, I came into this role looking at leading our marketing automation rollout across EMEA. So where did we start? In EMEA, Fujitsu operates in about 30 different countries. We've got historically a lot of country autonomy. People were able to do their own thing. We had country CMOs. We had a real kind of mix of what people were doing in the individual countries. But one of the fundamental problems, or the critical problems, was that there was no MA execution, or very little MA execution. We had a small instance of Pardot in Finland. It was run by one person. That person now works in my team to help us with the EMEA rollout. There's no awareness of MA. If you said to someone, what's marketing automation or what's MA? No one knew. And there's very little in the way of skills. So as Scott and Adam have both touched on talent, there was no talent. And I'll talk a little bit about how that's changing and how hopefully it will change a bit more in the future. Secondly, different tools and technologies. So if you think about how complicated the Martech stack is now, from our perspective, we had lots of different tools and technologies in every single country. And we even had technologies in countries where they were being used inconsistently or differently from country to country. So you can already hopefully start to see a little bit of the picture of chaos that I'm painting, a little bit like my house when I was growing up. And fundamentally, from a business perspective, I'm really looking around this from a business perspective. What I want to talk about is how marketing is needing to be driven towards being a value centre back to the business rather than just being seen as a cost centre where you can cut budgets. The transparency between the way countries were operating, we're talking 30 different countries, all operating in silos. So effectively, what this project is looking at is consolidating and simplifying the process for over 30 different businesses, if you want to look at it in that effective terms. So from a central perspective, from an overview perspective or a strategy perspective, there's no way, or there was no way of having an oversight of what everyone was doing. Even from country to country, there was not a lot of sharing, everything was done in silos. And in terms of KPIs, Scott touched brilliantly on these vanity metrics that are being used, or going back to your CMO and taking whatever metrics that you have that are available, or making some up, or paying an agency a lot of money to give you some that look nice and look pretty on a slide. But in terms of real hard-hitting KPIs that show revenue attribution, or having that insight on the customer that you can provide to sales, didn't exist. So that leads me into where I'm looking at in terms of our business reasons. So why did we decide in Fujitsu that we wanted to look and take on MA? We came up with 6 reasons. So Adam touched that there are 13, and I'm sure many of them would apply to us as well. But in terms of keeping it a little bit simpler for today, these are the 6 that we came up with. They're in no particular order, but they're all very important to us. The first one is around looking at how we can drive operational efficiencies. So coming from that background of having 30 different countries, all operating in a different way, it was very clear we needed to get something that would allow us to operate in a consistent, consolidated way at scale, and that's where Marketo was an obvious choice for us. Ensuring operational compliance, so it wouldn't be an MA talk without mentioning GDPR. Scott's already touched on it, and I was very excited to tell you guys, I know you're looking at expanding and integrating to EMEA, that you've got something wonderful to get excited about and look forward to the compliance. But it sounds like you've actually got more problems going on in America, California, and New York, so I don't envy you, but maybe I can learn from you as well. That whole piece around customer insight, the intelligence that we can actually provide back. Because what marketing is really about, and the sales alignment, marketing alignment problem is absolutely relevant, but what we should be doing as marketing is providing that insight that actually gives sales an opportunity to further develop their relationships with their customers and try and drive that revenue. Building a better customer experience, this is one of my favourite ones. So I'm very passionate about having a standardised, consistent approach. I like things to look a certain way. I like things to feel a certain way. I don't know whether it's because we have such a strict brand guideline in Fujitsu, as the guys at Clever Touch have learned over the years. But we're coming from a background where the way that Fujitsu communicates with our marketing, certainly from an outbound perspective, could be different depending which week it was, which country you're in, where you're a customer, which form you filled out on the web, which nurture program or non-existent nurture program you got put into. We had over 300, this is part of a discovery we did, we had over 300 different email templates in use, probably about 5 or 10% of which were remotely brand compliant, and executed in all sorts of different emailing platforms to anyone you can imagine. So something around that is something we've really done a lot of work on, and that's been largely due to the help with Clever Touch, so I'll touch on that a bit more later. Efficient revenue or smarter revenue is just talking about how we're actually trying to drive real value, understand what we're driving as real value with our marketing activities. So it's very easy, and we come from a very long past of, did we do this last year? Yes, we did. Did it work? Don't know. Should we do it again? Yeah, why not? So we come from a perspective where we don't have the insights, we can't determine what's efficient and what's not. I think there's a good quote I may have actually heard from Adam, so apologies for stealing this. In marketing, we don't know which 50% of our budget is working, or we spend 50% of our budget split either way, we don't know which half works. Something along those lines, and I think it's very, very true. And the last point is around developing our organisation. So we've already heard around the war on talent and how difficult it is to genuinely find people who are accredited, talented marketing automation professionals, and yet it's such an important part of the business, part of the industry today. So I'll touch a little bit about how we're approaching that and what we've done working with CleverTouch. Going into looking at our actual Marketo deployment, as I said, the technologies are largely irrelevant. There's a really kind of good mix across Marketo, Eloqua, and Pardot here, and a few others who are in transition. I think we're all always in transition, so it's a good point you made earlier. Talking around our Marketo deployment, it's very important to remember that, and there's a brilliant quote that someone in my team uses all the time. She's actually a marathon runner. And it's marketing automation is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's a really, really relevant point because I think a lot of the times, especially, I'm sure you guys have faced this challenge, you try and explain marketing automation, you try and explain the benefits, you try and get buy-in from the business, and everyone says, that's great, so I can expect all of this next week. And people being flooded with these messages around the sophistication, as marketers trying to understand that actually marketing automation or the approach to successful MA adoption is more about the journey, it's more about the phased approach, it's more about looking at doing things at the right pace. It's not trying to sprint flat out, try and build yourself a massive Martech stack and then have it fall flat in business and say, well, why didn't that work? Or where's my revenue you promised? So it's always making sure about managing expectations and doing things at the right pace and for the right reasons. Just before I talk around a couple of the key elements that we've done on our Marketo deployment, I really want to quickly touch on the importance of partners. So we've been partnered with CleverTouch very fortunately for the last 2 years. And I can honestly say I'm not sure where we would be or I would be without them. Do not underestimate the value of partners. So the surveys, the polls that CleverTouch has done at the start, looking around whether you insource talent, whether you buy talent, whether you build talent, whether you partner, regardless of the decisions that you make, Fujitsu certainly, we're not in a luxury where we can find 15 or 20 marketing automation certified experts for us to support the scale of our business in EMEA, let alone globally. So don't underestimate the importance and the value of partner. And if you're already investing a lot of money into technology, make sure you're getting the value out of it and you're proving to the business by working with a credible partner who can help you get the best out of it, especially if you don't have the level of talent that's required to make these kind of things really effective. So talking around a few things and kind of relating back to the challenges that we had 2 years ago when we first started this journey, the first thing we had to look at was our environment. So not only did we not really have any marketing automation platforms in place, we also had a lot of different technologies that were purely focused around email marketing. The other challenge we had is that people were treating their email marketing platforms as their CRM. So we were having hundreds of data dumps on spreadsheets, unprotected spreadsheets, into our mass emailing tools, a number of custom fields across multiple technologies. So we probably had somewhere in the region of 30 different technologies across 35, 40 different countries. No governance, no control over data. This is all pre-GDPR, by the way, so you can imagine what a shock that was when we were told what we had to do. And we got to a point where we were trying to do all this business discovery up front. We were working with CleverTouch around understanding what our current environment looked like. And it seemed that no matter how many interviews we ran or how much we went around the countries and talked and found out the stories of the marketers, every week, oh, I've got this spreadsheet, oh, here's a database I didn't tell you about, or here's a technology that I'm using, I'm paying for with my own credit card. Really, guys, so our environment was so complex, and I think even a couple of weeks ago, and this is 2 years down the line, found out another country's subsidiaries using their own tool, and they're like, what's Marketo? It's like, oh. So the challenge is real. The challenge is really real. And one of the things that we did with CleverTouch around trying to simplify this is looking at how these other tools were used across the region, understanding what were the really kind of key elements that needed to be supported for BAU, and understanding how we could put a phased plan together to try and consolidate them all into a single technology, into Marketo. So we're looking at taking over 30 technologies, 35 different countries, all into one new platform, one new nice little process that just goes in a perfect box like that, except it doesn't really work like that. And that's where CleverTouch come in. Because without that kind of guidance, without that understanding of scale, without the understanding of having a future model that's set up to cope with this demand on an enterprise level, it wouldn't have been possible. It simply wouldn't have been possible. And there's a lot of work we've done around that consolidation of technologies. In one way, we're actually very fortunate in the fact that earlier this year, around January, February time, we had a plan, a really solid strategic plan in place to look at an 18 to 24-month transition program that would migrate all of our different countries, onboard them, had a great onboarding plan made out, a lot of training, a lot of education, bringing people in, gradually feeding them into Marketo, getting to understand the switch and getting them to move. And then we were told about 3 or 4 months before GDPR hit that one of our primary tools that was used for mailing in about 20 countries The actual tool and company itself were non-GDPR compliant and they were closing their services. And we had a very, very fixed end date for our contract. So all of a sudden, we have 20 countries that turn around and say, well, actually, we won't be able to send any emails after May the 25th. And so what are you going to do about it, market automation team? We turn around and we say, oh, okay. So all of a sudden, we've got a very fast deadline that actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because instead of having 18 to 24 months to do a nice phased plan, we actually had a hard deadline where the countries that we were trying to transition didn't have a choice in one way, because it was be compliant or get a massive fine. So in one way, it helped us a lot to try and in one way, it helped us a lot to try and fast track our progress. And again, when it comes to partnering, the amount that we were able to turn around in such a phenomenally short space of time was really a testament. And it's only now, when you kind of stop after some of the chaos has ensued with GDPR, that you realise actually we did do a hell of a lot in a very short amount of time. So within a period of 3 to 4 months, we onboarded every single country in EMEA. We've just finished one of the last ones actually with a full transition. And so we now closed down all of our legacy platforms, all the ones I know about, where people are emailing. And we've also migrated all of our different users across into using the same system, same process. And I'll touch a bit more on that in a minute. The next point, which I've already skipped on to, is looking around data. So if you can imagine the problem we have with the different number of technologies and tools, amplify that more and you've got our data problem. So right through from spreadsheets to SharePoints to Google Drives to USB pen that I lost down my sofa or anything like that. Our data was in as many places as you can imagine. And when it comes down to things like big events, running invitation programs, inviting people to webinars, sending out your mass mailing lists, it was, what data can I find? Can I plug it in? Have I used it before? Great, send it again. Spam, spam, spam. And looking at monitoring things like unsubscribe rates or blacklists just didn't happen. It's just like, we've got all this database here, let's just send it to them all. What's segmentation? What's different personas? What's data audiences? None of this existed, which I imagine must shock or horrify some of you. And from my perspective, looking at other companies of our size, our scale and enterprise, I think, wow, you guys are doing very well. And they're like, so what are you guys doing at Fujitsu? I'm like, well, we're on a journey. But we have help. So we have the best help possible, and I'm very thankful for that. But that is the whole point. It is a journey. It's not going to be a quick, one and done. Thank you very much. Now I've got all my lovely stats, all my lovely lead scoring models, got my multiple attribute models, I've got all my great tech stack, and here you go, Mr. CMO and CFO and CFO. Look how good marketing you're doing. Now please give us some more budget so we can buy some more marketing technology. But it's all about looking at how we're getting value out of those. So for us, the consolidation of the technology was looking first around how do we actually get rid of all these non-compliant and terrible platforms that are really only email mass tooling. How do we look at our data? Understanding, pushing everything into the same place. So we've pushed all our data into Salesforce. So we use Salesforce as our CRM. So thinking about that web to MA to CRM spine that Adam talked about, our MA and our CRM now are really strongly integrated, and we're continuing to develop that all the time. But for our marketers, this is suddenly a big change of, I can't upload my spreadsheet and hit send. I actually need to think around who I'm targeting, and actually where's the overlap of targeting. And previously we had examples where our data could be anywhere because it was transferred between countries. So when you're looking at doing your marketing campaigns across 30, 40 different countries, you say, I think I've got a spreadsheet here and I think that's a French name, but I'm going to upload it anyway because I've got it, so I'm going to send it. So we had no control over understanding where our data was, what marketing was being sent to which individuals, absolutely none of that. And as part of bringing in Marketo and simplifying and consolidating that model, we've now structured all of our different countries into different workspaces, different areas where the lead partitions are aligned within their countries as they sit in sales. Which might sound like a really simple, really logical, straightforward point, but it's really changed the way that we're able to control and govern who's actually being targeted. And the final point to look at is looking at our process for execution. So this is the part where we're really journeying at the moment, but some of the pieces we've looked at already around simplifying what we do is looking at what do we used to do, and how do we get close to that but make it better and give some enhancements. So predominantly, a lot of our marketing, as simple and as basic as it is, was based on outbound email marketing. So actually that's what people are used to, and that's what people have been doing for the last 10, 15 years, ever since it was possible with mass mailing tools. And we really started looking at actually, if we're going to get buy-in from people, if we're going to take them on this journey, we need to at minimum replicate and provide some additional enhancements around what they're doing today. And that's where we started looking at this idea of having some simplified, standardized offerings that we could roll out to every single country and support centrally. And I'll talk on that a little bit next in our organisational development. So looking at how we develop our business, and Adam already touched on this a little bit around how do you actually execute. So depending on what size your organisation is, this may be different for you. We've got over 250 marketers in the field in 30 or 35 different countries. So if we were looking at trying to build our own internal teams, we'd probably need somewhere upwards of 15 to 20 fully trained, accredited marketing automation specialists, as well as marketing automation strategists, people who understand the client, the customer side, the sales side. We're not in a position to do that. It may work if you have a smaller company to have 2 or 3 or 4, but as we've already heard, and it's an emerging theme, there's a genuine problem with not only trying to find this talent, attract this talent, and retain this talent. So marketing automation is such a relevant skill, but actually it's a very slippery skill. And I still don't know how CleverTouch managed to have the highest number of accredited Marketo specialists in Europe and retain them all. Maybe Adam will tell me the secret one day. But looking at how we've developed our business, and we've got a bit of a hybrid model, so it's kind of been touched on, which I'm going to kind of go through now. The first point is around involving everyone. So it was very clear from the start, we've got a massive range of stakeholders, right through from our senior leaders, our CFO, our CEO, right through up until the board into Japan, where we're headquartered, looking around our top exec levels. And it was really important for us to consider how we involve everyone in this journey. So I said right at the start, one of the key takeaways is taking people with you, engaging people on this journey. And I'm sure a lot of you have maybe found the same kind of struggles or the same kind of challenges where people don't get it, people don't buy in, and it's really hard to engage people. The sales and marketing alignment thing is just a Pandora's box by itself. But in terms of your actual marketing organisation as well, that can be a real challenge sometimes. So from our perspective, we started right at our leadership level. So we started from a top-down approach. We spent time working with CleverTouch to define our vision for the business. We talked to all of our senior leaders, all of their different business areas and all the different countries across EMEA, trying to understand where those real pain points were, why things not working today, what might be possible to fix with MA, because MA is not a silver bullet, and that's another common misinterpretation or misunderstanding within the business. It's not going to fix all your problems. It's not going to replace 100% of your workforce and just press a magic button and everything happens by itself. There was a massive education piece that we needed to go on, and that was the way that we decided to get real engagement from our leaders at the start. We spent a couple of months looking around, defining those visions, defining the ambitions of the business, and then we spent the first year making sure we had regular touch points with that very top senior leadership level. And a big part of that was around how we develop awareness, because as I said, there was no awareness or understanding of what MA even was, let alone how it can provide extra value to the business. So it was looking at creating advocates from our top leaders, where they were actually able to share this message or understand the benefits of MA to communicate to their wider field audience. And that really has been part of our transformational strategy around understanding how is Fujitsu going to change from that mess that I described earlier into something that looks nice and gorgeous at the end, to use Scott's work. And we're kind of stuck in the middle messy bit at the minute, but we're working through it and already seeing some really positive changes. Touching briefly on our kind of Marketo champions, and this is what we've termed as the people who are certified within the business, the people who are kind of the experts or the champions around our actual platform. And this is important for a few different reasons. As Scott already mentioned and as Adam mentioned, it's important to have people who are professional within the business, who understand what the tool and the technology are actually capable of. Because if you can't understand what's possible yourself, how are you expected from a strategic perspective to communicate that, to take people with you and help them to understand what the challenges and what the benefits are as well. Within Fujitsu, we only have 2 certified experts. I'm one of them, and the other person who works in my team is my colleague who's come from Finland, who previously had experience with Pardot. Currently, we're the only 2 who are certified, and part of that comes from people being very embedded in their current way of working or their current thinking or their current roles and not wanting to shift, even though market automation is clearly such an important topic, an important part of our business. We did our training through the Level Up program. So for those of you who don't know, CleverTouch run intense kind of training courses that are either face-to-face or digital. In fact, the Integrate team are down for the next couple of weeks going through their platform training with CleverTouch. I'd highly recommend it. It fast-tracked my learning and my certification exam preparation exponentially. So if you're interested in doing any certifications yourselves, for those of you who aren't certified, or if you're interested in people within your team, your organisation, strongly recommended. So look at our marketers, and this is really where we get into the crux of the challenge. We've got 250 marketers across EMEA who have no previous experience or no awareness of MA or understanding of what it can actually do for them, or how it can impact the way that they work and the roles that they perform. And we faced this real challenge at the start, and we went back and forth of saying, well, actually, do we go with this mega distributed model and say, right, let's get CleverTouch out to all the countries and train 250 people, let's get them all taking their exams, get them all on the platform. And we very quickly decided that it wasn't going to be possible to scale that way. Simply from looking at perspective like system governance, understanding and making sure people use the same naming conventions, the same language conventions, the same tags, thinking around all our standardization and simplification we want to put in, just wouldn't work to do it that way. So we kind of settled on a little bit of a mix. We've gone very heavily focused towards a centre of excellence. We have a few people who are certified, a few people who understand what the platform is really capable of from a Fujitsu side. And then we make a lot of the execution supported centrally, but we enable each of the countries to do parts of it themselves. And that's where I'm going to touch in a minute on momentum. So we had to look very clearly at our end-to-end process and decide actually which parts are best kept in-house, how can we kind of keep things in control and stop our beautiful, shiny, new, expensive Marketo platform from turning into the wild, wild west that we'd seen happen to previous technologies. And a big part of this was around training and educating people on what can marketing automation actually do. And they're like, well, doesn't it just send emails like my previous tools? And why are we having to change? All these kind of questions that I'm sure you've all faced. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a moment when we get onto some of the things that we're doing. And lastly, to touch on talking around involving everyone, a massive, massive part of this puzzle and this jigsaw that we're working through is CleverTouch. So when I said around understanding the importance of partners, CleverTouch are well recognised within the industry as one of the world-leading MA partners. And earlier this year at the Marketo Summit, they won International Partner of the Year. So we're very fortunate to be partnered with them. They really do form a natural extension of our team. So with our model, we have an extended team at CleverTouch who help us with our technical issues, help us with our platform and system governance, and help us with our day-to-day operation of how we're executing as well. And we've been partnered with them for 2 years now. We're always improving. They're always challenging us. They're always challenging me to try and think a bit bigger, be a bit more ambitious, but at the same time, temper that ambition and balance it with the simplicity and standardization I know we need to make this work at scale. I'm going to briefly touch on momentum now, and this is kind of a very quick overview because I know Luke's going to cover a lot of this in his presentation next. But we wanted to try and understand what people were doing today, what they were doing the most, and how we could try and replicate that and make it simpler for them. And one of the things we realised very quickly is that our marketers are very, very used to and very comfortable sending outbound emails, using their emailing tools, and just mass mailing all their different customers or their channel partners in each of the different countries. So we had to come up with something that was going to make their lives simpler and their lives easier. So I don't know how many have used email editors or coding editors for your emails to feed your assets into things like Marketo or Elica or Pardot. It's not exactly the simplest thing to do unless you're really extensively trained in it or you've got a brilliant tech team who can support you and develop them. So we needed something very simple to be able to start creating our email assets and have them go in a very consistent, brand-approved way into our automation platform for our central team to then work on executing. And this is where we were introduced to Momentum. So Momentum is a CleverTouch offering, as Luke will talk about in a minute. But I want to briefly touch on how we've integrated it and why we've integrated it. And for us, it really came down to this question, this conversation of control versus empowerment. We want our marketers to be empowered, we want them to be enabled. We don't want to have a blocker because we've taken away all their old tools and presented them something new they've no idea about. But at the same time, we need to be able to keep control. So for all those business reasons, going back to things like our customer experience, our simplification of execution, we need to have a way that works at scale across 30, 35 different countries. So what we came up with is looking at how we use Momentum. And for those of you who don't know or aren't aware, Momentum is a simplified email builder tool. It's got a very, very nice user interface. It doesn't require you to have any knowledge around coding, HTML. All of your kind of quality assurance is controlled through the tool. All the design in there, all of the approvals workflow is contained within the tool. Your different team structures, your different user permissions are all set up within the tool. So for Fujitsu, all of a sudden when I heard this, I thought, oh, lights on, that's a brilliant idea. So for us, with 30, 35 different countries, I suddenly thought, right, well, I can now put you all into these different teams so that all the email communications that you're doing and you want to run, you can now develop and design yourself. And even better than that, we were able to finally present a consolidated template suite to them. So looking around the 300 different templates, I browsed through and shut my eyes for a few of them. We've now gone through a process where we're more aligned with our brand team. Our brand team absolutely love us because no longer do they have to go through and approve every email that goes out or the fact there's too many of them so they never got approved. They now know that guaranteed every single time the emails that are going out to our customers as part of our outbound strategy from any of our markets or workflows are guaranteed to be either rendering well, looking good, being on point, being on brand, being on colour, being consistent, basically, something we've never had before. And there's no more of this throwing back your PDFs or your Word documents or your PowerPoints, all these little markups, and no one can track the changes right, and someone's edited something instead of someone else. Everything's done within the tool, all the editing functions, all the approvals, and this has massively increased the speed that we're able to produce our email assets or feed our content into our automation flows. And not only that, but this is a big cost saving for the business. So it might think, oh, you're investing in another piece of technology, but actually what this does is it gives our marketers in the field the power to be able to reduce their reliance upon their local agencies who they previously paid to develop every single email, every single template. And it gives them actually a way of being able to create things that go directly into our Marketo. So from our perspective, we love this. It gives us the control knowing that all our email assets that are developed are good, but it also gives us the control over our Marketo platform and that we're able to know that people aren't going in and breaking things and changing the way that things are meant to be with the structure we set up. And it's all in a single tool. So I look forward to hearing some more of the points that Luke's going to share around that. And to close off, I'm going to touch on a little bit about what the future looks like for us. So it's very important to reiterate that this is a journey for us. I personally think we've come a long way in 2 years from the chaos that was, but we've still clearly got a long way to go. And this gets back to the point around understanding that not MA isn't one size fits all. It's looking at considering what works for your business. What's the right speed? What's the right pace for your business? You will always find people in your business saying, you're not going fast enough, or I need this, or I need that, I need this to be more sophisticated. Like, why haven't we done this already? So think about managing those expectations, but then also think about where you're trying to get to. What's the end goal, and what's the actual outcome that you're driving towards? And that is where events like these are absolutely brilliant to be able to talk to your peers in a really kind of open, friendly environment. Some great stuff already from Scott, some brilliant stuff from Adam. And I'm sure there's a lot of great conversations that are going back and forth over the refreshments. But it's really about understanding and learning from each other, saying, okay, that's great the way you're doing it, and actually, where could I apply some of those principles? It might not be exactly the same, but you can look at what is takeable from each of the business around lessons. So thinking around our journey, and touching on a point that Adam mentioned earlier, global alignment is a really big thing for us. So if I kind of zoom out from my main focus in EMEA, where I've got all these countries that have been doing things differently, I suddenly realise I'm opening up another region in America or Australia or Oceania or Asia or Japan. And thinking around looking at what's going on in those different regions, similar situation, what's MA? We've got no skills for MA in here. So all of a sudden we get to a point where we're developing this amazing blueprint, or we're going through this incredible journey in EMEA, and all of a sudden the other regions are saying, well, actually, we'd like that. Oh, can we have that? So it's a point they're already looking to us to say, what lessons can we learn from you? What can we take from you? What can we adapt from you? And the EMEA model that we've developed around Marketo with Clever Touch has already now been taken back to Japan, and they're looking about trying to roll it out in Asia over the next couple of months. So already we're looking at trying to align that kind of core, that kind of that key spine around what we're doing with market automation. It won't work everywhere. Even in the same company, it's not going to work in every different region, because each of the regions' maturity is different based on what we offer in the market, who we work with. It can be different across any of our different regions. But the key point is that we're having these global alignment conversations. And for any of you that are in global businesses and multi-country businesses, don't underestimate the benefit of trying to help someone else based on what you've learned. It's really important. Kind of building into that is around knowledge sharing. So the whole best practice idea or best practice element of this is the best way of doing it, this is the best way of doing it. Finding out what actually works. And not everything will work in every country, as I just said. But actually, there's something that can be gained from having people who are developing knowledge, developing awareness, talking to each other. So imagine if each of you were just sat in your own companies and you didn't have the internet, you didn't have MA forums, you didn't have events like this to come to. It'd be very difficult to try and share any knowledge, either share experience to gain experience or share mistakes. And that's why these things are really, really crucial. And what I've been seeing in our business is that there are some people who kind of get things really quickly, and there'll always be fast adopters. Any new change that comes in, people really lean into that change. And we've seen that those kind of people have started talking. So I think, okay, someone's doing really great in the Netherlands over here, or someone's doing great in Hungary. Why don't I connect them and make sure that they know they're doing things in a similar way, and we can start to look at replicating that for other countries, using them as kind of an advocacy layer that helps bring up the rest of the organisation's awareness and understanding. Thinking around customer focus, and this is really, really pivotal, because this is what it really all comes back to. As a business, as marketing, we're all tasked, whether it's directly or indirectly, around increasing revenue for the company. So our responsibility is around yes, we've got that difficult marketing and sales alignment problem, but how do we make sure that marketing is trying to drive in a way that's credible in terms of the insights that we're able to provide back around understanding our customer more effectively and helping sales with those conversations? And lastly, look at KPI reporting. We don't want to be taking loads of pretty PowerPoints of vanity metrics through, or dashboards that we've made up, or dashboards that are based on bad data. We want genuine insights so we can start to really drive that proposition around marketing being a value centre as opposed to just being a cost centre. So to finish off, I'm just going to quickly revisit the 3 takeaways that we need to think around. Don't complicate the simple stuff. We all know MA is capable. We all know it's complex. Scott said and Adam said that we only use 10% of most of the platforms, and that's true. So it means there's a lot we can do. But just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. So really focus on if you're either implementing MA right now or you're trying to think of how you can develop it, make sure you've got your key fundamentals, your key foundations around how you operate set before you try and complicate things based on looking at a nice stack model that you see from someone else. One size doesn't fit all. Always tie it back to your business reasons, tie it back to your end goal, tie it back to your vision, tie it back to your business requirements. Don't look at another company and think, oh, that works great for them, and I'll just take a picture of that stack and I'll go and try and put a business investment case in for that. It doesn't always work like that. Think more around the spine, as Adam talked about, and make sure you're building out and doing the simple stuff really well and making sure that you're actually considering how it impacts your business. And finally, taking people with you. You can never be too transparent. You can never over-communicate. And this is something actually that if I reflect on, I've perhaps not done enough of this in my organisation. So don't underestimate the fact that the people who the change impacts the most are the ones you should be involving the most, whether it's conversationally, whether it's directly. Any changes you communicate, you need to have those people at the centre of it. And have fun with it. It is a journey. Get excited about it. It can be a real challenge sometimes. You can think, oh, why am I doing this again? But it is genuinely important, and that trend will continue to emerge. Thank you very much. Time for some questions, I think.
Any questions?
I don't need a mic, I'll just shout.
Just for the
recording.
Thank you.
Really interesting presentation, so thank you very much. One of the interesting points you bring up is the consolidation of platforms and GDPR. One of the interesting trends I'm seeing is that with GDPR and the limitation of liabilities is more and more of the software companies like Martech, Eloquer and various others are saying they're limiting their liabilities towards their clients. So 12-month liability is kind of the new norm. The unfortunate thing for us as clients is, our legal teams are increasingly pushing us for unlimited liabilities. Is that something you're seeing as impacting your use of marketing technology, in that legal are restricting your ability to use these things?
It's a very good question, and actually we've perhaps got a slightly different approach to it than you might think. So, surprisingly enough, a lot of the legal responsibilities or liabilities is being pushed onto the people that are using it. So rather than having, because obviously Fujitsu has multiple different business units, and whilst there's someone who coordinates the kind of GDPR or the compliance element around each of them, a lot of the liability in our business is actually being pushed onto the individual functions. So marketing is a function, although we take advice from legal, particularly around operating in some of the more interesting or challenging regions like Central Europe, where they have a slightly more complex version of GDPR already. It's around looking at how we take responsibility for it and actually use our technology as an enabler to help enforce it. So where we're looking at our CRM or looking at Marketo, working with Clevertouch, we've actually put in measures and places that help us maintain that compliance or help us at least minimise the risk around it. And from our consolidation perspective, the less tools that we have to contain our data, actually the fewer places we have to look if we do get a subject request around what do we hold on someone. So we're actually approaching it from using the technologies to help us with compliance rather than worry about whether or not they'll be compliant to use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a business risk approach.
Yes. Yeah. Which is probably different to how other people do it, but...
Thanks for the presentation. Quite a deep voice, I'll keep it there. You spoke a little bit about KPI reporting and sort of marketing attribution. I work for a company where we've had a marketer for a similar time. We've got a few certified experts like myself, and there's a lot of parallels in the project like you've just spoken about. One thing we still struggle with, and which some of the, the non-digital marketers try to understand, is how complicated marketing attribution is and why it's just not a quick fix. It would be cool to know how your KPI reporting has changed, how some of your objectives have changed, and whether you've got any work with marketing attribution.
Yes, so a very, very relevant topic for us. So in terms of our phased approach or staged approach, the part that we're at the moment, after going through all this nightmare around consolidated technologies and data, is looking at our lead management, our lead lifecycle modelers. So we're currently in the middle of doing our business discovery around this. We understand what we want to be able to do, but in terms of looking at how we attribute, the connections that we've got with sales or with our CRM are still misaligned. So understanding around why we want to attribute, the concepts are there, they're really well understood now. Understanding how we do it is a bit more difficult. So in terms of our KPIs or our dashboarding, we understand from a kind of business perspective around what we want to be able to do, but we are not there yet. We're working very, very closely with CleverTouch, working very closely with understanding what we need to do in our region.
Is that just, are you still using kind of just default Marketo reports, or do you have like an external BI tool?
Yeah, so we're using all the Marketo reports and analytics for the programs that we're executing at the moment. So we've got a couple of very complex nurture frameworks that are kind of always on, that operate across our biggest kind of strategic bets, as well as all our kind of local programs for BAU stuff. We've got a lot of reporting that's also built out of Salesforce. So what we're doing now at the moment is, as you imagine, being an IT company, we've got all our own data warehouses and all our own kind of different solutions around that. We're in the middle of a project at the moment around actually having an extractor that goes from Marketo and Salesforce and other areas of our business into a single data warehouse that we're intending to point our Tableau servers at. So we're going to have a mix of it. So we've got kind of short-term enablement with Marketo reporting to allow local marketers to do all their analytics on their kind of email sends and get their kind of semi-vanity metrics that they're used to, whilst we transition them to understanding the bigger value add and tying all that data together to get better insight. But it's a work in progress. Scott.
Sorry, Scott.
I'm last.
I know you are, yeah.
So, thank you. Great presentation. I'm wondering, for the benefit of the group, could you talk about assumptions that you made when you started this journey? Sorry, I know you know where I'm going, and why you think you were way wrong about the things you assumed. What were the lessons that you learned that kicked your butt?
Yeah, sure, okay. So I think one of the biggest assumptions that I made coming into this, being fairly new also to marketing automation or kind of marketing automation technologies, that it actually was fairly simple. So the idea or the concept around marketing automation, having something that you can develop in advance, just kind of hit go and let it go. For me, very naively, it was kind of thinking, okay, that'd be quite simple, and there'd be no problem in implementing that. One country, 10 countries, 30 countries, no problems. That's the biggest assumption I made at the start. The second assumption I made that I was very wrong is around getting business buy-in around the investment. So, as everyone in this room will be well aware, presenting an investment case to your CFO around saying, sorry, why you want to spend this much on another marketing technology? I've already been paying for the last 3 or 4 that you've been using in the last 10 years. What's wrong with those? And I wrongly made an assumption that the kind of change management piece around getting business buy-in for something that's actually so critical was going to be a piece of cake. And it definitely wasn't. It hasn't been, and I'm sure it will continue not to be. So one of the biggest lessons I learned, which is time back, is around communicating it. So as a central team, as a central function, working in operations and strategy across our leadership teams and very closely with the team at CleverTouch, I can't overstate the importance of communicating. I really think it is probably the top priority around making sure people understand it, because there's a lot of people who are in the same position I was, thinking it'd be a simple change, and 3 months down the line we're done, and 6 months down the line we've got all these big kind of custom workflows, and that's easy, we'll build that, we'll do that. Never underestimate the challenges you will find, because almost every week or every month throughout the last 2 years I've come across things I thought, didn't think that was going to happen. Whether it's legacy tools, legacy data, no matter how much you communicate, how many deadlines you set, how many different expectations you put, someone is going to find a way to go against it. So always be prepared for something that you completely don't expect, as far as possible.
Thank you. One more question, one last question, and then we'll on to Luke. So you'll be around afterwards?
Yes, I'll be around afterwards if anyone wants to talk.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, good morning. So I'm Luke Crickmore, aka Babyface, apparently. Thank you, Adam. I'm sure many of you disagree. And today I'm going to be talking you through simplification with technology. So I'm going to be showing you some of the things that we've developed with clients over the years They've simplified the way that they do their business. The first thing that we found out at CleverTouch really early on was that we were going to need to form a development team, a specific team who focused on pushing our clients forward. And actually, our clients often pushed us forward. They were really, really ambitious. They wanted to see the most out of they wanted to get ROI out of their platform. They wanted to prove to the business that their decision to bring in marketing automation was a good one. And they wanted to show them what they could do. Well, we've now developed a team of nearly 30 techies, developers, who are developing cutting-edge technologies for marketing automation. These technologies go from anything that simplify everyday tasks, automate everyday tasks, all the way up to making progressive web applications that clients can even share with their customers to bring them on that process. The first one of those that I want to talk to you about today is Momentum. Momentum is a tool that enables a marketer of any skill level to be able to build brand-compliant emails within a matter of minutes. Basically, no training required. Hopefully, Tim, you can testament to that. It's such a simple tool. And actually, I'm going to give you a quick demo of how it works in a minute. It enables companies to onboard people into marketing automation really, really quickly and efficiently. It enables companies, when they're setting up marketing automation, to be able to continue business as usual communications. That's really, really important. Because often marketing automation, there's a few months before you can actually send out your first emails because there's so much training required. So what are the key features that we've got in Momentum? We have a really powerful email builder that's context aware. I'll give you an idea of what that actually means in a minute. That'll become much more clear during the demo. Basically, it means we can code your templates in a way that people can't possibly break them. And the things that they can change depending on how we code the templates. We've also simplified the amends process. At CleverTouch, we build over 1,000 emails for our clients every single year. And this is generally the place where issues arise. And that's because amends will come over in emails. There'll be a long list of 20 bullet points maybe sometimes if someone's not paying attention that you'll have to go through and check off. We've completely changed that process. So now the amends process is built into the platform. The developer has got a to-do list of amends that the admin has added to the emails. And the way that the admin adds them to the emails is by clicking anywhere on the email. They click on the email, they add the amend. No more having to try and describe where that is within the email. We've also got a systemized approvals process, which takes your emails through from draft all the way through to approved. This stops any of your emails getting even built into marketing automation until they've been checked by someone that you trust. This means that no emails are going out from marketing automation just by under the radar. They're all going through this centralized global process. And finally, you can work in teams. Talking about Tim's case study. Fujitsu have now got over 40 teams of Momentum. Each of those teams have got between 2 and 15 people in. We've got a couple of teams with the whole 200 odd people that they've got in Momentum. But these teams enable people to work together on email assets. They also enable individual teams can have their own templates if that's required for a particular business unit. They also enable them to have their own brand colors, and they can store all of their assets in their own area within marketing automation as well. We've also got loads of other features I'm not going to have a chance to go into today, but if anything on here is interesting, just catch me after, and I'll be I want to talk to you about it. So let's jump into a quick demo. This is what Momentum actually looks like. You can see I've got 3 emails built in the platform. Today I'm just going to take you through how simple it is to change some of these elements and try and highlight to you the context-aware editor. I'm a member of 2 different teams, UK and US. I'm going to choose UK, and then I'm going to select my newsletter template. When I get into the template at the top, most of you should know what these fields are because you've all got marketing automation. The difference between what we can do and what the marketing automation vendor can do is that because we want our platform to be simple, we can add in all these tooltips to help people who've never used marketing automation before understand the type of information they need to add to those boxes. Changing a link, changing an image like the logo is really, really simple. I click on it and I only get the option to change the logo. Changing the header I can change just the color. We've made it so that you can only change the color to one of your brand colors. You can't add text, you can't delete it, you can't, remove it from the template. That's really important. Next, changing the header text. We've managed to standardize this text across every single template. People can't change if it's bold, they can't change the color. It's really important that we get that standardization. And you can see when you're typing exactly what the template's going to look like. It's often marketers don't actually know what template they're going to use to put their content into, and they find that their content is too big for the template. You can see we also give people more control. They can bold, italicize certain text, they can add links to text. We can control all of that. I'm currently building a newsletter, and sometimes I've got multiple articles that I want to get into that newsletter. I can copy complete sections, complete groups of components, and I can also delete groups of components as well. That's a quick overview of just how quickly you can build an email and the differences between the elements that we can code into your templates to make sure they're always compliant across your organization. The next thing I want to talk about is event management. And every single one of you in this room today has been a beta tester in our new event management platform. We're calling it the Simple Event Manager. And this event manager is exactly what it says on the tin. It's simple. We wanted to keep it simple because we hear from people all around the globe that their current event management systems are too complicated. They just don't know how to get the data from that event management platform into their marketing automation system. So we turned it on its head. We actually pull the data from your marketing automation system, which is where you're generally capturing registrants for an event, and we're putting it into this app. This app does a few key things for us. So it works offline, so you don't need to worry about an internet connection. We don't have one today. The apps work seamlessly. It works with multiple people checking people in at the same time. It enables you to send the data back up to your marketing automation database with the press of a button, and it enables you to enrich data on the day as well. This is a very quick demo of what it looks like. So you can see here I've got two events, a Martech event and a Simplification event. This is just dummy data, by the way. We didn't have 579 people to try and fit into this room. The first thing that I'm doing here is I'm pulling fields back directly from the marketing automation platform, so that already we're trying to standardize the data that you're capturing across this platform. We're not adding in extra fields here and there. Then when I click on the event, I can scroll down the left-hand side to see all of my registrants, or I can search by company, first name, email address. If I click on someone, I can see all of the detail that comes back from that individual from our marketing automation system. And if I hit any of the checkboxes that are to do with attended, we've got 2, they're automatically checked into that event. I can add details onto someone, and we send that information back up to marketing automation automatically. I can also add walk-ins, so if you have people who haven't necessarily registered for your event, I can add them to the system, and then we add it to your marketing automation platform. And we can make it so that your GDPR requirements are met with this platform. Then all I do is hit sync in the top right corner once I've got an internet connection, and they'll be straight back in marketing automation within a list so that you can do your post-event communications that same day. That's one for you, Matt, today. Another way that we've simplified someone's event workflow is with Fujitsu. And we had the luxury of visiting the DSEI event with them because we developed an app to be able to manage that whole process, all the way from booking to the on-the-day process. And I just want to talk you through that. So they gave us some key requirements. They needed to be able to book people into particular time slots. There were limits to the number of people that you could have on a time slot. And they wanted people to be able to book across 3 different events. And those users could book all 3 if they wanted to. Those events were a VR experience where you got to sit down in a little pod and get your VR goggles on. They were hospitality, where you could be wine and dine. We were visiting the DSEI event with them because we developed them an app to meet a salesperson and just get stuck into the detail. All of this was built into Marketo. There was no external database. The data that we had, because it was defense data, was really, really sensitive. So everything that you see here is just on a Marketo landing page. The coolest bit of the app was the on-the-day experience. So with the data that we held in Marketo, not only could we send them personalized pre-event communications, we could also bring that data back on the day and check them in to the event. Basically, Fujitsu would have anywhere between 20 and 30 salespeople on the stand at the day. Just gives you an idea of the scale of this event, and I'll show you what their stand looks like in a minute. What would happen on the day is there was 2 people on the front desk that would check someone in, and they would use a similar system to what we just showed you there, but that was built into this app. Once they checked them in, the salesperson would look at their calendar, which is in the top left-hand corner here, and they would basically receive a notification that said that they needed to go to the front desk to pick this person up. Again, shows you just how big this stand was. It had an upstairs. That's how big it was. Once they got them back to their demo booth, they would click their name. And when they clicked their name, they would see this collateral view. That collateral view enabled them to show them any of the particular products that they were selling at that event. So the cool thing behind this is that we were actually tracking exactly what someone had shown engagement with and storing that information back into Marketo after the event, so that the next day when post-event communications went out, they were targeted all the way down to the product level. And we did that with velocity scripting in Marketo as well. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the different types of content that they may have had for any one of these sections. So we had the ability to show videos, we had the ability to show PowerPoint presentations, all within this app as well. This is what the event actually looked like. You can see the little pod with someone sitting in there with their little VR goggles on. But the coolest thing for me, probably because I'm a techie, is the screen that we got wired up to our platform as well. So our platform was notifying loads of different devices all at the same time, but it also meant that it could notify a big screen that everyone would be walking past. That screen would track down how many slots that were available on the virtual reality experience. And it meant that almost everyone that was walking by saw that there was a spare slot and they jumped in on the experience. I think they booked in over 700 people over the course of those 4 days through this experience and saved them a huge amount of time. No pen and paper. There was no pen and paper on the stand whatsoever. Every single salesperson had their own tablet that were typing all the notes into. All those notes went into Salesforce after the event as well. The next thing I just want to talk to you about is simplifying your reporting. And I don't mean simplifying the reporting that you already get out of the marketing automation platform. That stuff is already pretty simple. I mean when you want to move to that next level and you want to start bringing your data together from multiple different areas. We've built a tool called the Pardot Data Extractor, which enables you to pull out all of the data from your platform and continually keep that data coming into this single database. That enables you to join your data up with multiple different systems and report on that data in your favorite BI tool. Or you can work with us and we'll help you report on that data. Some of the key themes that we've seen with our clients and Pardot reports is that the reports are generally quite locked down. There's no custom reports in the system that you can create. It's difficult to join up that data, so you often want to pull that data out of the platform. As soon as you do, though, it's usually out of date by the time you've shared it with someone. You've mocked it up into a nice slide. We want you to be able to harness the power of your data. We want to give you back access to that back-end data so that you can do reports that you haven't been able to do in Pardot. Like even looking at which users in your platform are creating the most emails. That's sometimes relevant for people. If we look at this report, you can see this is one of the ones that we've managed to develop with the data. This is a company score report. If you click on a company on the left-hand side, the center turns into all of the individuals within that company. The ones that are pink are the decision makers. The ones that are green are just normal people. The size of the bubble shows how much they've engaged with your content. We've built a really robust extraction process. Pulling data out of Pardot, if anyone's tried, is really, really difficult. You can only pull out 200 records at a time, which means, there's a laugh happening in the back there, which means that it's really difficult to get your data out and keep it out. So we've actually built a process that prioritizes the data that comes out of the platform to make sure that the data that's coming out is the stuff you actually want. And then in the background, we'll keep pulling out the rest so you can get a fuller picture of your data. Here's an example of some of the things that we can model, but we can do many, many more. Pretty much every client we work with has got a bespoke report that they need. We can work with you on that. The last thing that I've got to cover really quickly, I've got 3 minutes or something, is how we simplify things within our own business. What tools we've developed to enable us to stay competitive. At CleverTouch, one of our biggest USPs is the quality of the work that we produce. And one of the ways that we do that is with a tool that we produced called MailTool. This enables us to really focus on the first few assets within a campaign and then train our program to build the rest for us. If you think, sometimes at CleverTouch we're dealing with campaigns that are over 100 different assets. Those assets have got different images, they've got different links, they've often got different copy. That's like thousands of different things to make sure a human gets right if a human is developing this stuff. Instead, we want to focus time on the first few, make sure they're perfect, and then get a computer to do the rest, because that enables us to make some assumptions. That the computer's not going to pull weird copy over from Word, the computer's not going to miss a full stop, the computer's going to make sure that tracking code is on every single one of our links. And everything that we do goes through our automated testing tool called Manual. This enables us to check, there's just a subset of the stuff that we normally check here. This enables us to automatically check things like all of the links on the page are resolving, all of the images are showing correctly. There's a favicon on the page and it's not one of the ones out of the box from marketing automation. It also enables us to add a copy checker, which means if we have copy, we can stick it into this box on the left and we can go through the page to see if anything's missing. If anything's missing, it'll flag up to us and we can log that with the developer who originally built the asset. We also have a link checker. As you'll probably know, when you're creating lots of links in marketing automation, there's tons and tons of stuff that gets added to the URL. It's all for tracking. That's really difficult to be able to see if you're just clicking on the link and trying to see if you go through. Our tool enables us to view that in a really, really simplified way to make sure that we never miss a tracked link. And then finally, rendering. We make sure that every single asset that we build goes through full rendering tests if it's a browser, if it's a web page, or if it's an email. This tool enables us to send those requests off to the platform immediately and pull those results back to make sure that everything is rendering across all devices consistently. And lastly, just to leave you with something, we've built lots of technology over the years, and a lot of that technology has enabled us to be able to build to the standard that we do today. And we want to share some of that with the community. So if you're ever doing anything with social sharing links, or you use UTM tracking code, or for example, if the two Eloquent customers we've got in here do anything with blind form submits, we've got the tools on our website, which is just here, that will enable you to build that at scale. Thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions?